Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bill. Bill Karagunis. I'm the general manager for the Microsoft Managed Desktop team. And I wanted to spend 40-ish minutes, maybe a little bit more than 40 minutes, talking to you a little bit about the genesis of Microsoft Managed Desktop, what it is, drilling into some of the details. I'm going to spend some time also with a customer. I'm going to bring one of our customers up on stage so you can sort of hear a little bit about what our customers think of Microsoft Managed Desktop. And then I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about roadmap. Before we get started, I wanted to do a quick show of hands. How many people in the room are from Microsoft partner organizations? Cool. Well, thank you for coming. When I'm talking about IT in this presentation, you should also process that as Microsoft partner organizations. Towards the end of the discussion, I'm going to be talking a little bit about how Microsoft partners can work with us in partnership to participate in and work on Microsoft Managed Desktop. Okay. One of the things, and this is probably an interesting slide for everyone's like, why is he showing a basketball team? One of the things that we do a lot of at Microsoft is we spend a lot of time with customers. In fact, we travel out to customers, we invite them back to Redmond, we have executive briefings, and we ask them questions like, what do you want to achieve? What are the things you want to do in your environment? And one of these customers was an NBA basketball team. And I feel like this is an interesting story to sort of tell. They started talking to us about their aspirations to put biometric sensors on their athletes, to understand when an athlete is playing, how that athlete is doing, how have they been playing for too long. They talked about aspirations to put motion capture cameras on the court so they can judge where is an athlete when they're shooting and what's their success rate when they're shooting from there. They talked about things like they want to put ambient microphones around the court so that they could sort of drive the fan experience better and be able to maybe sort of drive some of that stuff through the internet so people watching online get a better feeling and feel like they're more part of the sporting event. There's just a number of things that they actually hope to do in this organization. And then we started asking them, well, what do you do on a day-to-day basis? Where do you spend your time? And then the conversation turned to, well, we fix broken hardware, we worry about deploying patches to machines, we're resetting apps, we're packaging apps, we're thinking about how do we configure security, what policies. And it's interesting, later on in the presentation, you're going to see a stat. And one of the things we see is organizations spend about 55% of their IT time on tasks like this. Microsoft Managed Desktop, when we spoke to these guys, Microsoft Managed Desktop was essentially designed so that a lot of that work could be alleviated. So organizations such as this one could start focusing in on the things that they wanted to do, spending time on driving the business forward versus spending time on what we would categorize as commodity tasks. So with Microsoft Managed Desktop, at a high level, there's a couple of things that we want to achieve. You heard Satya yesterday talking about people at the center. It's no different with MMD. The very first thing we think about is what is the user experience on these devices? It's a fundamental piece that kind of obsesses, and there's members of my team that would sit there and tell you, the guy's completely and utterly obsessed about this thing. But we worry a lot about, these people that are coming into the workforce that have grown up with smartphones in their hands. What are their expectations on technology? And is that the experience we're delivering to them in corporates around the world? So that's a big, big focus. In fact, statistically, we see 80% of millennials saying that technology, workplace technology, influences their decisions about which companies to join. 2 out of 5 of them say they would leave their job if they had crappy workplace technology. Important stat. And we expect to see more and more of this shift as time goes on. The next piece is, we think a lot about keeping data safe. MMD is an offering for corporates. So we think a lot about, well, how do we keep the data safe? And how do we bring the best of the Microsoft security stack, as well as some of our services and capabilities to the table to ensure we're doing that with our customers? And finally, it's a lot about empowering IT and our partners so that we can focus on getting into their backlogs. I can talk a little bit more about this right now, but I'm going to bring you back to that organization. Who's from Indiana? Anyone from Indiana? Yeah. So Pacers Sports and Entertainment was that basketball team, and I'm going to let some of the folks at Pacers tell the story a little bit more.
Within Pacers Sports and Entertainment, we have a professional NBA team, we have a WNBA team, and then we also manage all of the other events that take place here at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Microsoft Managed Desktop is a service that we've implemented here to manage our end user experience. We have about 300 end users, and from an IT perspective, I have 7 individuals that manage everything that happens here. Microsoft helps us do the really hard technical things and allows us to focus on what happens on the court. Before Microsoft Managed Desktop, even something as simple as booting a machine up could take 5 to 10 minutes.
Now the computer boots up so fast, and the facial recognition makes logging on extremely easy and efficient.
While we're a small company, we have a global brand, so security is paramount for us. New machine?
New machine.
From a patching perspective, from an active threat management perspective, having Microsoft behind you, doing the heavy lifting, allows you to focus as an organization on your core mission.
With Office 365, it's been amazing. Previously, we were so siloed out in these individual groups, and now with Microsoft Teams, it's so easy to communicate with everybody.
We have 4 teams that are always on the road with scouts across the globe. With Microsoft Teams, they can collaborate as if they're in the same office.
If I have a problem, I can very simply open up Microsoft Help Desk. They can remote into my desktop, and the problem is fixed within minutes.
Partnering with Microsoft has allowed us to focus on our IT backlog, wireless upgrades, point-of-sale refreshes, for different things that are specific to the guest experience that exists here at Bankers Life Fieldhouse.
Okay. So you heard Carl and Courtney from the Pacers talking a little bit about their experiences now that they're up and running on Microsoft Managed Desktop. They're focused on their critical projects, the things that they want to do in terms of driving that experience. You also heard from some of the users around what it's like to sort of utilize the Microsoft Help Desk and have one of the support professionals basically go and correct things on their devices, and the timeframes around those sort of things, as well as what being on the latest Microsoft 365 platform and up to date really, really means to them. So, they're a great customer, and it's nice to actually sort of hear from them. Now, I want to drill into some of these other points in a little bit more detail. So let's talk about end user experience. And we're kind of geeky. So a lot of the people from the Microsoft Managed Desktop team actually sort of started life out as operating system engineers on Windows and stuff like that. And at the basic level, we want to make sure that the experience is fundamentally great, right? These are the expectations. Many of you, by the way, my boss, Brad Anderson, stole my boot demo, so I'm not going to do a boot demo today. But for those of you who saw the boot demo, that's where a lot of this sort of came from, around people want to be able to have quick and easy access to their technology. So what you're seeing on this slide is, you're seeing a comparison of the fleet of devices that are running MMD in the world versus the rest of the devices that are commercial machines in the world from a diagnostics perspective. And the other thing, the other filter on this data is 2 models of Surface devices. So we are comparing like-to-like hardware on these machines. And you can quickly sort of see, some disparities around some of the data here. When you're running something like a Surface Laptop 2 or a Pro on MMD, you're sort of talking about sub 30-second boot times. we see the world as a little bit different. And look, and under the covers, when you think about it, under the covers, it's the same Microsoft 365, but we want to make sure that we're sort of bringing the best out. You know, we're sort of realizing the potential of the software that's running on there. Battery life. Battery life, in a very big way, is all about the software that you're running on a machine. Battery life is about acquiescing the processor on that machine so that when a user is reading something or not doing anything, the processor is going into its lowest power states and shutting down transistors and being highly efficient. You know, modern processors, Intel processors of today, they don't have linear power curves. They've got step function curves where they're lighting up big bands of processors. So we obsess about things like, you know, are these devices being efficient in terms of screen-on battery life? Are we acquiescing when a user's running these things? And you can sort of see the disparity. It's almost 2x. In fact, I think it's a little bit over 2x when you sort of see the MMD devices in the world versus the rest of the fleet. And the other thing is crashes. You know, your device has to be reliable. You can't afford for it to sort of be impacted. With MMD, we spend a lot of time, you know, if there is something that pops up in the population that we sort of see, you know, a number of users are having a particular crash, we go and debug what that crash is. We want to go get that fixed. If that means fixing something in the operating system or working with one of our partners to get something fixed, it's super important for us to sort of be able to sort of deliver that through. And that's the nature of the service and the things that, you know, we think a lot about around the end user experience. This is the foundation that you build everything on top of. If you get the foundation right, then end users start having a great experience. Now, when I show this data to leaders at Microsoft, they turn around to me and sort of say, well, you know, you're a geek. What does this really mean? I mean, you know, this looks good from a geeky perspective, but what do the users actually think, Bill? So we decided to partner up with an organization called Qualtrics. Has anyone heard of Qualtrics? Qualtrics, they're sort of an industry-leading employee experience management organization. They were recently acquired by SAP. They've been doing this kind of stuff, you know, sort of employee sentiment and understanding, you know, what employees think for many, many years in the industry. They've got a bunch of PhD people working there. They know how to construct surveys and be able to derive real information out of them. So we got Qualtrics to do an A/B comparison of several MMD customers. And we found some interesting statistics coming through there. And some of these are actually cultural as well. And you know, the interesting thing and the really cool thing about this for the people in this room is the power of technology to motivate users in the workplace. You know, when they compared the MMD crew to the non-MMD crew and these customers, they saw a 121% gain in employees feeling more valued by their company. You know, that's huge from a retention perspective. You know, and that's, you know, just purely as a result of their PC experience. Kind of makes sense too, right? You've got a piece of technology that you can take with you. It starts up super quick. It's there. It's ready for you. You don't have to lug around notebooks. You just sort of write on it. Depending on the form factor, you know, could be really conducive to be able to be using that device and carrying it around with you all the time. They saw 15% more engaged than their peers, and there is this sort of standard IBM World Norms sort of methodology that the Qualtrics people actually used. Just, you know, for reference, all of Qualtrics' data from around the world had this at about the same point as the comparison group that we used inside these customers. They were quite surprised when they saw a 15-point jump in this group of users around the power of some of the experience and what that can derive. And the final one, the Net Promoter Score, for those of you who are not familiar with NPS, we use that a lot at Microsoft. It's a scale that goes from -100 to 100. And it really rates the propensity for somebody to recommend a product, a technology, a piece of software to a colleague or to a friend. And just for a bit of context, with our Surface devices or with Windows or something like that, we obsess about 15-point gains. And for us to see a 75-point gain from those two groups inside these organizations is pretty sort of astounding. We had to sort of go back and sort of check, what's this about. So, you know, like when you think about the summary of all of this, modern management techniques, focusing on the user experience is one of the critical things that's ultra important if you want to have happy customers and people sort of excited and wanting more about technology. Okay, let's spend a few minutes talking about security. From a security perspective, this is obviously another one of the pillars that we think a lot about for MMD. We think about the threat landscape. It's getting more and more complicated. And some of our customers are seeing nation-state attackers and dozens of new technologies they sort of have to work with. This is sort of more complicated by the fact that there's a bunch of talent that's scarce in the world that knows how to do the security stuff really, really well. And I think from a Microsoft perspective, has everyone seen the recent Gartner surveys of the Microsoft security and compliance stack? So the Microsoft stack now is in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, right, in the top quadrant, which means that when we utilize this piece of technology for our customers like MMD, we're seeing sort of great results in terms of being able to sort of successfully defend and run their environments. With MMD, we utilize the Microsoft security stack almost completely, unless a customer has a burning need that our stack does not fulfill. And we think about it holistically. We start from the hardware, all the way up through the operating system into the cloud around what are the policies we need to light up, what are the configurations we need, how should we be setting up these devices to be defended and defensible over time. The other thing to know about MMD is the security baseline gets revised all the time. I think right now we're on a sort of a run rate of 2 updates to our baseline every month. And we think about and we work on the future around what are the features and functionality that our engineering teams are working on, and how do we sort of bring that into MMD as quickly as possible as we roll out stuff. The other factor about MMD here is we also have our own security operations team, so that every time an MMD device is born, it registers into our SOC, and we work closely with our customers' security teams and security operation teams in terms of a service interlock to be able to work together to defend their estate. And you can sort of see some of the stats here on this slide around response times, how quickly it takes for us to patch a portion of the population from the moment that a patch is released. I think that's a really important point there on the first stat. We measure it from the moment that something goes live on Windows Update to the point where we have 95% of the whole estate done. Whereas we sort of see with many organizations, they spent quite a bit of time on testing an update before they sort of roll it to their organization. And the compliance stats there too. So security, it's a huge, huge focus. We want to make sure we get it right. We want to make sure we do it in a really scalable fashion. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about empowering IT. And there's 2 parts of it. So MMD is natively cloud-based. Under the covers, we utilize Intune exclusively. Well, our customers, will tend to do pass-through authentication into their Active Directories, but MMD devices are MDM, Intune exclusively managed, and we utilize cloud services to sort of drive all that kind of stuff, which also means we configure it with the cloud as the device is initializing out of the box, which also means that we have some more flexible deployment models in terms of not needing for, customers don't need to go away and image things and, worry about all of that aspect of it. We utilize stateless principles. One of the key design points for MMD is we want to be able to, if somebody, pours a cup of coffee on their device, we want to be able to replace that device, by essentially shipping out another one, having them log in, having all of the configuration come back down, and their apps come down and they can get back to work really quickly. In fact, we worked closely with the OneDrive team. Who knows what known folder redirection is? Okay, so known folder redirection was one of the first things we worked with the OneDrive team on getting built, because we wanted a way to be able to sort of pick all of the critical data stores on a local machine and replicate those things back up so that when that device had a cup of coffee poured on it, and we're sort of, giving that user a new machine, all of their, the documents on their, all of the documents on their desktop are, basically reconstituted, et cetera, et cetera. We talked about security. We leverage almost exclusively our security stack. Updates. So you saw a little bit about our quality updates, but we also, reasonably aggressively push out feature updates. We think about the right time, we validate these things very carefully, and then we push them out to our population. The final one on the left-hand side, app compatibility. So with MMD, once a company's apps are on MMD, we take responsibility for ensuring their compatibility. i.e., if we push a quality update or a feature update out to these devices, and something goes wrong or an app breaks, it's MMD engineers that are investigating what happened to that app. Why did this binary that was working on a previous version of the operating system stop working? And then driving that through as necessary, including reaching out to ISVs or working with the Windows team or whatever engineering team we happen to need to work with to get that problem solved, getting that fix done, and then sort of rolling it through. On the Backed by Microsoft piece, we talked about the security operation team. I'm not going to spend too much time on that aspect of it. The next item is health monitoring. So those stats you saw before about boot time and battery life and crashes, you can't just treat those things as one and done. That is a persistent piece of work that you have to keep doing. You need to keep monitoring the estate. We've got people in the team that keep an eye on these things and making sure where are these things landing for our user bases? Is there something different about a particular customer from some other customer? We want to ensure that health monitoring is constantly going on. The other thing that MMD customers get through our portal once you've onboarded is essentially a status. So you can actually sort of look at the crashes in your estate and whether Microsoft is investigating or what's going on with that particular crash. It's one of the pieces of insight in addition to users and application insights that we publish through our portal. We talked about cloud backup, and I just mentioned a lot about actionable insights, so I won't talk through there. Finally, we also have an optional service, which you actually saw in the video, which is the end user support piece. So some of our customers want Microsoft people to be at the end of the line. We provision an app in all of our devices where a user can essentially IM into the help desk or organize it so they get a call back. And then we have our support people who have context on the machine, and they're able to help that person out or remote in as necessary to help them out. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about support models and how partners can get involved in support models. So, that's a quick tour of MMD. And I thought it'd be interesting, instead of me rambling on a little bit more, I thought it might be interesting to get one of our customers up on stage and to talk a little bit about their experience with MMD. So I want to invite Simon Bullers. Simon is the Director of Engineering from Lloyds Banking Group in London. And we can have a chat about MMD. Welcome, Simon.
Hi there.
Have a seat. Simon.
It's good. The first challenge is the high chair.
Oh, cool. Cool. This is quite good. This is comfy. We need 2 phones. I was telling the guy before. So, Simon, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization?
Okay, so I'm Simon Bullers, Director of Engineering inside Lloyds Banking Group. So Lloyds Banking Group is the largest UK bank. We've been around since 1695. We created paper money in the United Kingdom, and we also created the traveller's cheque. And we also introduced the first computing platform into banking in 1959. In terms of the UK economy, we have 30 million customers. About 14 million of those are online. About 10 million use digital native apps. We account for 1/3 of UK payments, one quarter of, or one in 4 new mortgages in the UK. Right. And we're a bank that does retail banking, commercial banking, wealth and insurance management.
So really simple business.
Very simple business, by the way.
Well, it's sort of interesting to sort of get an idea of the scale of the operation you run, and I know personally that it's a very large, complicated organization. We should take a trip down memory lane, because you and I have known each other now for 2 years on Friday, I believe.
2 years on Friday.
I think
It
I
is
met
2
you
years on
ago.
Friday. Yeah.
It'd be interesting for the group to sort of to understand, and if you could share some of the challenges that were consuming the organization or your IT organization when we first met.
Yep. So, I mean, I think we had the standard challenges that most organizations have, which is, I joined the group 2.5 years ago, and we were just completing our XP to Windows 7 upgrade program, which was an interesting challenge because we were undergoing a transformation program, and we knew that we had to immediately start again. So, that challenge is 5 to 7 year refresh programs are, immensely complex from a balance sheet perspective, but also from the technical drain on the organization to just do these things in that way. I mean, I guess creates almost a viscosity that you don't want. We wanted to have something that was more fluid, more modern, and actually would give us a different outcome.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I remember some of those early conversations and sort of working through some of the colleague challenges and the environmental issues. Tell us what's changed since November of 2017. Sorry, I'm getting really old here. I'm forgetting time. Yeah.
So, I mean, for us, that journey became, could we work with Microsoft, I guess, to help you, and could we actually, as a banking organization, create the nirvana of an evergreen environment? So could we get out of the business of actually constantly doing this massive, mammoth upgrade program, and could we just get into the quality release and feature release programs that you have as an organization, and could we take our bank in that direction? And the good news is, through the hard work of some of the team that are in the room, actually, we're on that journey, and that actually, when you have people clamoring to actually want a device, you have success. In fact, people opting out of applications so that they can be fast-tracked onto the program is definitely the success that most organizations strive for.
Yeah, that's terrific. I mean, I think I recall sometimes some of the colleagues, in Lloyds Bank, the users are referred to as colleagues. Some of the colleagues sort of saying, well, you're not taking this device away. I don't care if it's a pilot device,
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's terrific. And I think, I mean, like you touched on some interesting points, which I think is really worthwhile to share. I would say we have also, sorry, I just broke the microphone. The guy's angry at me. I think we have also learned a lot partnering with you around some of our security stack and some of our technology investments. In fact, I would say some of the announcements you've heard this week around data loss prevention, in many ways inspired by some of the work that we did together at the bank, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we have in a highly regulated business, you clearly have challenges every day. And I think for us, getting to that modern environment, we have to have that conversation around how do we protect, we're a bank. People trust us for our ability to protect assets. Yeah. And that journey begins with the environment that the colleague uses. And we've had to work with you, I think, to enhance those. And it's been a great story working with Microsoft to see your evolution of products in that space, but also to share that, those enhancements back with you so that we could have new features created. And then now we have the products that have been announced.
It's terrific. We're actually highly appreciative of all the engagement. And I feel like, we're going to learn a lot more as we sort of move on. Talk to me a little bit more about some of the lessons learned, do you think, of this journey so far for you?
Well, I think there's a couple that just spring to mind. The first thing is getting your technology organization, ready to take a change is an interesting challenge for ourselves. So working with, our own engineering teams to understand why this makes commercial sense for a bank, and also then taking the colleagues on that journey so that actually, change is now going to occur monthly, and actually that's something that we need to really understand from an organizational impact. But also getting people to realize that this investment means that we are constantly current, that when something's announced by Microsoft, those features come into our platform and we can now use those, which creates an opportunity actually.
Yeah, I feel like it's been super interesting because there's been times when I know that we've been asked, hey, can you go faster with pushing the latest feature update? Which, in my career, I've been in Microsoft for 20-something years. I've never had a customer as large as yours sort of saying, we want this piece of technology faster, go, deploy, sort of thing. And that was great. Tell me a little bit about the impact that it's had on your team and how they feel, like how things have changed for the IT team. team?
Well, I think, often I guess when you're making a change, there is fear, uncertainty, and occasionally doubt. And I think as an organization, we've been investing heavily in ensuring that colleagues, actually see the opportunity that this kind of change makes. So we have almost 1,000 staff that have been accredited in cloud training so that they understand the Azure proposition. We're now looking at infrastructure as code and codifying all changes within the bank, which is a real different, more PowerShell than PowerPoint. And that's a real big transition from actually saying we now codify these changes. We will operate in a standard continuous integration, continuous delivery model. And that's really the important thing for this is actually to get the colleagues to understand that this is a big investment in their future career directions.
That's terrific. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks for the engagement. We've learned a lot, and I look forward to all the stuff we're about to learn as well.
Thanks.
Thank you, Simon.
Okay.
That was terrific. I mean, I've got to say, like for me personally, even as a seasoned sort of Microsoft engineer, the learnings we've had going through this process have been incredibly valuable. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what's new with Microsoft Managed Desktop since the last time we spoke at an Ignite. We have included a number of devices. One of the things I didn't actually talk a little bit about was the fact that we have a catalog of devices which are sort of the MMD devices that we like to run on. And we've been incorporating many of our OEMs models into that catalog so that we're ensuring that that foundation is great. We're sort of up to 20 plus devices, and this is a constant piece of work. Even the Microsoft devices, even Surface devices, have to prove themselves as being reliable enough before we will deploy MMD on Surface devices, much to the chagrin of my peers. On the partner side, there's a number of, one of the things we've wanted to do is we want partners to be able to work with us on MMD. We want partners to be able to incorporate MMD into their offerings with their customers. So we have a number of partners that have engaged. We've got the notion of collaboration partners. Some partners want to be involved in the support side so that they can, because some organizations want to have one organization doing their help desk. So we've done work to incorporate third parties into our support flow. And helping them out in terms of tooling, and then allowing them to be able to escalate into our operations team should they need help. And obviously that's over time going to apply to customers as well. On the insights side, there's a bunch of work we've done, which I talked about around these insights. We have grander aspirations around being able to show more and more of what's going on in the state, because we feel like it's our job to make the partner or to make IT heroes in their organization. So the more we can talk about, how quickly the estate is updated, or what's happening in terms of some of these quality fundamentals in that organization, and provide that visibility so that IT teams can basically focus on a whole bunch of other stuff and sort of move forward, or bring new value to the business. And the other piece of work that we've done is just a bunch of experts in the field, checklists, project plans. We have sort of a massive service description that most organizations don't want to read through, so they would rather opt for our ITIL documentation around understanding how the service interlock works with Microsoft when you're deploying MMD, and how do those workflows work along the way. Okay, what's coming? We are opening up new geographies. In fact, we just opened up in the Benelux region a little while ago. I talked a little bit about those support models. I won't sort of repeat it. And the final thing is, today we've got sort of a standardized way we deploy in terms of our policy set, and we want to make sure that that's all sort of scalable. But we've sort of recognized that we want to make sure that we sort of deploy this notion of profiles so that our customers can essentially say that this particular device is a shared device. So the policy sets and the features and the capabilities, understand all of that, and the right stuff goes in terms of lighting up that experience versus, a privileged worker or somebody You might have a CFO where you don't want the CFO to be able to install any apps, no matter what, right? Because that person is handling very sort of sensitive information. So this profile infrastructure is one of the critical things we're sort of, like working on, bringing forward, et cetera, et cetera. In addition to, work on and integration with Windows Virtual Desktop over time. So if you were going to take a picture, this is the slide to take the picture of. This is kind of like the summary in one slide. As you want to take the picture. Oh, very good. I'm glad. I'll take a quick drink. It's essentially basically sort of all of the stuff we've talked about over the last 45 minutes or so. Okey-doke. And I will, I also wanted to spend just a moment on how to get started. What are the things that an organization needs to get up and running on MMD? It's relatively straightforward, but it's not easy in the sense of, obviously we want your apps to be on Windows 10. It's fundamental. So, organizations that are still running on Windows 7, you want to make sure that those apps are remediated for Windows 10. They've got to be able to function in that regard. And we require Azure Active Directory. I mentioned before that these devices are MDM-based, MDM-managed, connected to the cloud directly. There's also, I don't actually have it on this slide, there also, for some organizations, tends to be some work around ensuring that internet services are available to devices within a corporate network. For example, sometimes organizations sort of block, various Microsoft endpoints through their proxies. There's, sort of networking infrastructure or validation that actually needs to happen. But then once that's done, we're talking about Windows and Office running in a corporate environment, which can run legacy apps, et cetera, et cetera. How to get started? We have a booth. If downstairs, it's in the same place as Fast Track and our management products. So feel free to sort of visit us over there. Talk to your Microsoft people. For those of you who've got Microsoft account managers, partner account managers, have a chat with them, or send me email, Billkar, BILLKAR @microsoft.com, or have a look at some of that documentation link. And with that, I thank you.